Hi, Michelle with the Fruit Doctor, and here is part two with my interview with Alice Coleman. And last interview we talked about her growing up as a vegetarian. Today we're going to talk about her work with Mercy for Animals, and then also really what has she found to be the best approach in sharing the plant-based message with people. So hopefully you enjoy this interview, so enjoy.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. So, as a ethical vegan, because there's a big controversy going on in YouTube right now about, are they really vegan? If they're doing it for health reason. In fact, I think with Fully Raw Christina, do you know who she is?
I do.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people are feeling really frustrated with her right now. And, my feeling is, and, I'd enjoy your opinion, is, I do feel the responsibility to show up as a good example health wise. Because if I'm asking somebody to switch to this lifestyle and I don't look or feel healthy, they're not going to be very motivated to want to do that. Because let's face it, I am an animal, and if I mean, if I'm not feeling good and somebody makes a switch and they don't feel good, you could see why they would then go back. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to take the last week out of consideration just because I've gone and eaten out at some amazing restaurants for the last like 4 or 5 days, which has been very delicious, but definitely makes me feel like a little bloated, and I feel like I'm retaining water. And I so yeah, I do have my moments where I do like to go and indulge and enjoy really delicious, yummy vegan eats, but at the same time, I thrive when I'm eating mostly fruits and mostly veggies and maybe some grains, but just keeping things like real whole foods, plant-based,
Mm-hmm.
all the time. And so, as you're saying, like we're kind of like the face of the cause, we're the face of the movement, and if the face isn't looking very good, uh, well, it's not really going to be something that's going to motivate others to want to hop on board. And I have a lot of conversations with people who are conflicted because maybe they do see what's going on, and they are aware of some of the circumstances surrounding meat and dairy, but they just keep in mind like, hey, maybe I tried this little thing for a while and I didn't feel good, and I feel good on my current diet, and I want to feel good, and that's one thing to really point out is everyone needs to take the time to really get to know their bodies. And I think it's an ever changing and an ever growing process. Like I'm still getting to know what works best for me. And so when people maybe take a look at all the different options that they have, then they can say, okay, well, I feel better when I have this macronutrient ratio, or I feel better when I'm eating more veggies, or if I'm eating more fruits, or if I'm eating less legumes or more legumes. And they just have to kind of gauge that, because one thing that we do have to keep in mind is everyone's physiology is different, but I think that everyone really can find the best vegan diet for them, as long as they listen and they take the time to get to know themselves and they give it a chance. But once more, like we are representing this huge cause, and we're technically the advertisements. Like this is the face, so it is our responsibility, and I think that's also why, for me, I have such a strong constitution, and like people come up to me and wait, you haven't cheated, like you haven't had an ice cream, or you haven't done anything, like you haven't had a chocolate that wasn't vegan since you became vegan. I'm like, no, I mean, if I'm the one going and preaching this, and I'm going back on my word and eating a Haagen-Dazs or eating something that has animal products in it, why should anyone take what I say seriously?
Do you feel pressure? Do you feel pressure being that face, whether it's being the daughter of Lily Mueller or being the face of Mercy for Animals? I mean, do you kind of feel, because, I notice you kind of, parsed your words a little bit of like, hey, look, this last week, I'm human. And, I definitely appreciate about that, about you. You're humble, you're transparent. But do you ever kind of feel pressure because of that?
Um, I don't feel like I don't feel pressure, because I do fully admit that I'm a huge foodie. That it's one of the things that I love most. I mean, I definitely feel pressure to look good in a bikini when it's summertime. But I think
Or
for
a
me,
photo shoot with your mom?
or a photo shoot with mama, yeah. Too. But, I think like it's just kind of an extension of myself at this point. It's not something that is difficult in any way, shape, or form. I mean, maybe it's difficult to avoid vegan donuts sometimes, but that's just something I have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, again, I just, for me, they've got so many vegan options that if somebody is going to be human and cheat, have that. And
Absolutely.
enjoy yourself. Life is a celebration, and if you don't feel good after doing that, then you can make the choice on upgrading the quality of your diet. But, there is an ethical line that nobody's saying you either have to eat Brussels sprouts or donuts, right?
Do you love Brussels
Do
sprouts?
you? Well, some people do, some people don't. But for
Very-
the people who don't, nobody's
Yes.
saying that in order to be vegan, you must eat Brussels sprouts.
At least for every meal. I do understand and appreciate that. Yeah, I think absolutely. And for me, like me personally, I choose to stick to like non-GMO foods, and so I do have a primary emphasis on organics. And then for things that are maybe more difficult to find organic, I just make sure that it doesn't have any of the key ingredients or foods within that product that would be genetically modified. And so I don't one thing for me is like you have to make veganism as approachable as possible and something that's attainable, because if you make it so difficult, if I go around and say, well, I look at all these ingredients all the time and I I don't eat canola oil and I don't eat Hawaiian papayas and I don't eat anything with non-organic soy, people might think it's really difficult and they're like, oh, well, I just don't want to have to go through that. I don't want my life to be like that. And so for me, what's an important distinction is saying, this is where I'm at, and I don't necessarily expect people to have the same standards, but I do expect them to educate themselves and make conscious decisions as to what they are putting in their bodies and making sure that they're not promoting a harmful life.
Well, let me ask you, in terms of approach for, activism and advocating and education, um, you know, again, there's people who are saying you've got this angry vegan in your face, they feel hostile. What do you feel, given that you've been doing this your whole life, is because you seem very respectful and very tactful, and what do you feel has been the best approach? What is your thoughts on that?
Um, I think you really need to gauge who you're talking to, just because people have different motivators and different lifestyles and different ways that they kind of approach change and how they deal with change. And so for me, I mean, as you and I both know, like veganism is really like a three pronged, yeah, just a thing. Like veganism, you have when you're becoming vegan, you are being an environmentalist and an activist, you are promoting good health for yourself, and then you are making the lives of animals, a lot better. And so you have the ethical, sustainable, and health reasons that are, motivating factors. And so, a lot of people that I've come across may not necessarily click for the ethical approach as much, but they are, hard sustainability activists who really cannot believe what's going on in the rainforest or cannot believe how much water we're wasting when we're in a drought. And you're like, well, hey, guy, look what's going on. Yeah, I mean, you can really conserve a lot if you decide to, go plant-based. And, at times that might be the right click for that individual. Or maybe someone does have health problems and that is going to be the motivator that pushes them over the edge. And I think whatever approach you take that allows people to take steps forward towards adopting a vegan lifestyle is really beneficial, because once you're already doing it, you become a lot more open-minded and you can see all the other benefits that are coming from it. And so just getting someone there is the
Yep.
number one thing.
Nice. Well, good. I'm really glad to hear that, because it could be easy for somebody in your position to take for granted something that you've known your entire life and to maybe even be judgmental of other people, like, well, why aren't you seeing this? What's your problem? And as you and I both know, that it is, even for us, a learning curve, and that type of thing. So, meeting people where they are and, not judging them and that type of thing, because there are shades of gray. People say, well, black and white, but it's like, if you're coming 30% or if you're coming 70%, look at how many animals and look at how much better for the environment and for your health. And like if you take an alcoholic, very few people go to cold turkey and give up alcohol. A lot of them have relapses, and that's normal. So do you look at the alcoholic and say, well, you know what, you might as well just give up, you're a loser, forget it, or do you say, hey, keep going, try it again, what can you learn from this relapse, and that type of thing. So
Yeah.
I agree that that's really important for somebody who's a teenager who wants to go plant-based vegan and they're getting kind of weird feedback from friends. What would you say? I know you had mentioned to go to the library and to research and that type of thing. Any other feedback you'd give to
Oh,
them?
yeah. The best thing is to have them try food because if something's delicious, there's no way that they can really say that it's not. I
Cool.
mean, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, depending on where you're at, if there's like a great vegan bakery around and it's your birthday, we'll bring some vegan treats. Or say it's a pizza day, bring your own pizza. Let people try like a different option. Um, so my friends, like, unfortunately, a lot of my friends are not vegan from my childhood, and it's something that I'm not going to really push on them too hard, just because I do respect them, and anytime they have questions, I'm more than happy to provide them answers. But when I'm out of town, or if I'm living in another country, or I'm doing my thing, they go to these vegan restaurants without me, and they really enjoy it. And this week alone, I had a friend whose birthday we were to celebrate, and we were like, okay, where do you want to eat? She goes, oh, I haven't been to Shojin yet, and you guys keep on saying how great it is. And so we went to a vegan Japanese restaurant and had a sushi feast, and everyone absolutely enjoyed it. So kind of just, what did they say, breaking bread and allowing people to have the opportunity to experience it, I'd say is, lo and behold, the best way to approach it.
Awesome. I like that approach, and I agree with you. And in fact, we were just talking today with a friend, and she was like, what you got to do is you've just got to put it out in front of them. Don't tell them it's vegan. Don't, make a big deal of it, because if they hear tofu, they're going to automatically close down. But let them taste it, and then once they love it, then you can tell them it's tofu.
Absolutely.
And it's like, that was tofu, no way. So you and I both know there's good veggie burgers, there's bad veggie
Oh my
burgers,
gosh.
there's good tofu, there's bad tofu.
Oh
Just
yeah.
just like there's good meat and bad meat, right?
Exactly, and that's what I keep on telling people. I'm like, well, you've been to a bad restaurant before, right? Okay, well, if you go to one restaurant and it happens to be vegan and it doesn't happen to blow your mind, doesn't mean that all the other vegan restaurants are bad. It may have been that one dish at that one restaurant that just didn't really jive with you. So you have to give it a chance.
And I've had bad vegan food, and I
Oh,
just
yeah,
have
me too.
thought, oh my goodness, if this was the first experience for somebody, and it has been. I went to, and I'm not going to name anything, but I went to a raw restaurant, and it was so bad that my husband turned to me and he said, "You owe me an Olive Garden." And I was like, "Oh, I don't even know what to say back to that." So fortunately, he kept an open mind, and it wasn't that bad of a thing. But it is true that it happens, and so if we can keep a sense of humor.
Just curious, is your husband vegetarian or vegan himself?
He is now, yes.
How long did that take? Because that's one thing that I've definitely noticed in my dating life. Is It's definitely an interesting, an interesting lesson to how to share your life with someone who is or is not living the same lifestyle.
Well, when we were dating, he knew I was vegetarian, and in fact, kind of how I knew he was interested was we were at I think it was a Thai or a Chinese restaurant, and he actually tried a vegetarian dish, and I was like, whoa, because he was teasing me the entire trip, saying, what do you eat? And then he'd see a field and goes, oh, there's some grass, you could go graze, and it was like, okay, funny, haha.
Like, I haven't heard
So
that before.
yeah, right. And so we got married, and he more or less was a vegetarian, because I was vegetarian more or less. And so, we would go to Olive Garden and, have the fettuccine Alfredo, that type of thing. And then when I went vegan, he's never eaten meat because I've never fixed it in the house, and I've never had cheese in the house. But what really did it, and like you were saying about the three prong, was his family was very sick. His mother passed away 10 years ago from diabetes. She had had it for 10 years. She was on dialysis for 10 years. She had an amputated leg. And his brother passed away at age 44 from diabetes, and they were all obese, and he was blind in one eye. He had an amputated leg. And so our life insurance policy expired, and in order to reapply, you have to get a blood test. And men hate to go to the doctor, get blood work. Well, it came back he was type 2 diabetes. And he knew what was down the road for him genetically if he didn't change his diet. He knew a plant-based diet was the best approach for diabetes. And so I said, well, you know what you need to do. Now, that said, I work with clients to help them to get off of medication, and there are vegan things that if they're diabetic they need to avoid. You can't have sodas, you can't have alcohol, you can't have refined simple carbs. But that's when he was like, okay, and again, it's hard sometimes to get the oil out, or, some of these other things, but we have a glucometer, and we have random days that we take readings, and he now sees that, his blood sugars are still pretty high. So he's lost a lot of weight. We still have about 30 pounds to go. But, it's never been an issue in the home. It's more just the eating out, and it was more convenience. And so now I make him some oatmeal cookies to take with him to work, and I've kind of told him places that are safe places to go and what he can get, because at the end of the day, people need to eat, and he's 6'1", he's active, he needs fuel to keep going. And so that's why I started doing what I do as a health coach, is to say, okay, your doctor told you need to do this. You need to do it. You want to do it. You just don't know how. So I'm here to walk you, handhold you like a personal trainer, accountability, showing you how, so that you can get there. So at the end of the time of working with me, you're like, okay, I got this. So, and I think that's where we have to be as plant-based people too, is we can't just, it's like you don't as a parent scold a child and say, you need to do this. You need to show them how to do it, because clearly they're not doing it. Maybe they don't know how, maybe, whatever, maybe we haven't been clear. So in addition to, like you said, giving them a dish, we need to teach them how to make that dish, and where to shop, and where to get things, and that type of thing. So I think what I have found in dealing with people, and my mother was an alcoholic, so I've had addictions in my family and that type of thing, is not to come from a place of judgment, but to come from a place of love, and to be very honest but heartfelt in saying, I am very afraid when I see the trajectory that you're on, and I have seen this bad result happen in other people, and I'm afraid that that will happen for you. And because I love you so much, and I don't want that to happen, what can I do to support you in making the changes that I'm sure you need? And I want you to feel comfortable to be in dialogue with me. I want you to feel safe enough to share whatever's coming up for you, and I want to let you know I'll drop it if you need me to. But I if you're a smoker and alcoholic, I am not being loving if I'm not at least addressing what's going on, because whether it's food or alcohol or drugs, it's all about numbing out the pain. And so if I can't be a sounding board for them, because that's really how we need to deal with pain, is through connection with people, and I'm just coming with shaming and judgment, well, that's just going to create more pain and drive them more into the coping mechanism. So that's what has helped me in dealing with people, and showing compassion and understanding, and saying, okay, so tell me, what do you need? How can I help you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is probably a much better approach than, as you said, scolding people or giving people a slap on the wrist.
Right. Yeah, because let's face it, I mean, in our journey, that wouldn't have worked for me. That wouldn't have helped me.
I'm a very stubborn person, and I hate criticism, and I like to think I'm perfect all the time. I'm sure other people do too.
Yeah. Well, for me, my endometriosis was a blessing, because it was what was slapping me around. And so when I fell off the wagon and I got this stabbing pain in my side, it was like, oh, I I have to figure out an alternative way of doing this. So
Yeah.
otherwise,
I would.
yeah, I would have kept cheating too. So anyway, thank you, Alice, for coming and being a guest on here. I love the spirit that you bring to the table, and the work that you're doing and how you've turned out. And I wish you all the best with your future. And thank you for all that you're doing.
Of course. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. It was very fun.
So thanks for watching. My name is Michelle. I'm with the Fruit Doctor. Look forward to when I do an interview with her mother, Lillian. She's one of the most popular interviews on my website, and so Lillian is continuing to do amazing things. She just turned, or she will be turning 65 this year, and she still looks phenomenal. So thanks for watching. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next video. Take care. Bye-bye.